About 300 people, mostly women, many dressed in pink, showed up outside the Massachusetts courthouse today to support Lindsay Clancy. They stood silently for more than an hour, some wearing shirts reading, "She needed help," and "Peace for Lindsay." Now, this is a striking show of support for a mother who admits killing her 3 young children. Clancy's accused of strangling to death 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan with exercise bands in January of 2023. But her attorneys argue that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis and she's not criminally responsible. Inside the courtroom today, whole other story. The defense called a hospital chaplain who has been met with Clancy more than 200 times since the killings. Sheila Kavanaugh testified about a chilling statement that Clancy allegedly made about her children in the days after the killings, and the persistent male voice that she says was giving her commands. Take a listen.
She said to me as I held her hand to comfort her, "I am so glad my children are safe." I replied theologically to Lindsay, and I said, "Lindsay, your children are safe. They're safe in heaven with God." She alluded to having heard a voice, and the voice, according to Lindsay, told her that if she did not follow the command, neither she nor her children would be safe. She alluded to the fact that it was a male voice and it was persistent.
But on cross-examination, the prosecutors pointed out that Kavanaugh never documented Clancy's claim about hearing a voice in her hospital notes. And the judge blocked another potential witness from testifying, a former McLean Hospital employee who was questioned outside the jury's presence yesterday. She went viral on TikTok after accusing prosecutors of misrepresenting the quality of Clancy's care. The judge ruled her testimony had limited value because she didn't work there when Clancy was a patient. And here's something else that happened that was really interesting today. The judge questioned the jurors one by one, asking, among other things, whether they'd seen or heard anything that could affect their ability to remain impartial. And then, after hearing from just one witness today, jurors were sent home early for the second day in a row. So why question the jurors now? With 2 days of them going home early and weeks of conflicting testimony, what on earth must they be thinking right now as they may be going into deliberation soon? So for that, I turn to Richard Gabriel, one of the country's top trial consultants and president of Decision Analysis, Inc. He's consulted on high-profile cases, including the Casey Anthony and O.J. Simpson trials. Thanks so much for taking the time. Let's start here. The judge questioned each juror one by one today about whether they'd be impartial. Why do you think he did that when you see a judge doing that? Because I wonder if it's about the crowd.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, the truth is that in every high-profile trial, there's always the potential that pretrial publicity or publicity during the trial may have influenced the jury during the case. Also, sometimes there's random notes that get tossed to the court. Oh, so-and-so is on Facebook or TikTok or something saying something about the case. So there's all these sort of investigations that sometimes go on during the trial. The judge has to take them very seriously because obviously the jury can only decide cases based on the evidence that they hear. That being said, 300 women in pink in silent tribute to her in front of the courtroom clearly could influence the jury. I think the judge wanted to get to the bottom of that and see whether it actually did have an effect on the jury.
Real quick, do you think that they're thinking, well, hey, why were we sent home 2 days early?
Oh, I think so. I think I mean, look, during the big trial like this, there's lots of stops and starts. There's also arguments about what kind of jury instructions are to be given. So I think they take it with a grain of salt. They know this is a big case. They know they're kind of winding up right now. So I think that they are wondering, but also I think they're trying to be patient.
Richard, I'm going to give you my opinion. I think that this is going to be a long jury deliberation process. I think they have so much to go through. When I hear testimony like, "I'm so glad my children are safe," when they hear a witness who spoke with the defendant and her allegedly saying this, and this question about whether or not she should be held criminally responsible, whether she was suffering from psychosis, couldn't appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct, the back and forth conflicting testimony, what on earth do you think they're thinking right now?
Well, there's a lot of thinking and there's a lot of feeling. The truth is, this has been a tremendously emotional trial. So jurors are trying to sort out how they're emotionally being moved by the 911 calls and by the autopsy photos and just the sheer fact that a mother is accused of killing her 3 kids, along with their rational job of trying to decide logically, what does the evidence prove? There's a clear important evidence that could take a long time in deliberation, which is, what is this concept of mental disease and defect, which really is the concept of whether it is. The defense has done a fairly good job, obviously, of establishing that there was a history of mental disease and defect. The question is whether, in conducting the act, whether she knew that it was
Right.
criminally wrong or illegal at the time.
Do you think they've made their decision yet? Like, they're not supposed to, but they have closing arguments. They're waiting for the prosecution's potential rebuttal case. Do you think that they've made their decision already, and individually, before they go to deliberate as a part of a group?
So some jurors already have. The truth is that closing arguments really focus on three things. One is shoring up any vulnerabilities or things that they feel have been problematic for each side during the trial. Two, trying to give arguments to their advocates to convince other jurors. And three, there might be some fence sitters who really aren't in the middle and trying to figure this out. So those are the three things that they have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But there is probably a good portion of these people that have already made up their minds.
I hear you. I think that these closing arguments are going to be very important to articulate, clarify why certain witnesses, their testimony was important, how it fits into the narrative. We'll see. Richard Gabriel, thank you so much. I was looking forward to having you on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.